everyone.
Hi,
Beth Stelzer, Safe Women's Sports. Here's Linda Blade, amazing woman
Hello.
up in Canada, Coach Supreme, former national athlete. Well, you were like an elite world level athlete, right?
Yeah, I was world level.
Well,
Yeah.
why don't you just introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Linda Blade. It used to be Linda Spence, so that was my maiden name. But while I was an athlete, but I was national champion in Canada, and before that, I was NCAA All American. Division I, University of Maryland. I was a podium athlete in the heptathlon, and then I went home to Canada and became national champion of Canada and represented Canada in a number of international competitions. And got injured for my Olympic moment, but so I can't say I was an Olympian, but I was definitely near the top and had a great time in sport, and then went on to get my PhD in kinesiology, got married to a lovely man who was an agronomist, and the story goes from there. And now I have been a long-time coach, sport performance professional coach, consulting with athletes in over 15 sports to help them become better athletes. And then finally, in 2014, I was elected as president of Athletics Alberta, which is the track and field association here in my province of Canada. And my job in that role is to go to national meetings. And I've been fighting for on the gender issue now for a few years.
And within that association, you helped create some rules to help protect females, didn't you? Some awesome
Yes,
work.
I did. So I basically every 2 years I have to reassert apply and go through another election to be re-elected as president. And so in 2018, when I became aware of men and women's sports and the gender ideology, I actually campaigned for the next round of the presidency on that issue. And I said to my people, it's like about 3,500 members in our association. So they all had representatives at the meeting. And so the room was about maybe 50 to 70 people, or maybe even 100, I don't know. But I basically just said, look, if you elect me for another round as president, here's my position. Sex-based sport. We compete on the basis of biology, and here's what our rule is going to be. When you sign up for our association, you sign up as male or female, and athletes are there. From there on, athletes are not to represent themselves. They can identify any way they want, but they must compete as male or female. And the only difference would be that if you're a female taking testosterone as a trans man, then you would have to compete in the other division. Otherwise, we compete on the basis of biological sex. So that was a policy. So I was re-elected on that basis in 2018, and overwhelmingly. And so
that's a pretty awesome feat.
I have a mandate to actually make sure this happens. So by fall of 2019, we were able to pass our policy, which is completely 180 degrees, like difference from the national. And the national Canadian body is trying to get us to have sort of self-ID, full self-ID, no questions asked. And it's actually coming to a head in about 3 weeks. We're going to have a meeting in December about the national policy. So it's kind of coming to a head. They've already said that the Alberta, our association, our policy might be illegal, but they're wrong. I know the law better than they do in that regard, because we've been dealing with it all through this time. And so it'll be an interesting around the table, I'd say. And
well, I know you're going to be prepared, and you always go at everything 110%. So I can't wait to see the outcome.
So I wrote this book, as you know, Beth, and I sent this to every one of the presidents across every province of Canada before the meeting. So they have
that's incredible. That's awesome.
Things, so they have our logistical arguments and everything that supports the Athletics Alberta policy.
And for everyone out there, I'll put the link in the description below. You can get it on Amazon, so it'll come to you really quickly. It's a quick read. It's really good gift to give to people that are kind of teeter-tottering or not quite understanding the debate. Linda's really laid out the history of what we're dealing with here. You're kind of
Yeah.
making the history books for what we're doing.
And it's something I need to say always, that I got one thing wrong, and it was on your story, Beth. I mean, the only thing I got wrong in that whole book was just
it's okay, Linda.
a difference. Yeah. And no, I just want to say, like, when you get to the part about Beth, it's not that she had to compete with men or males. She had to actually endure some guy having a hissy fit that he was not allowed to compete with their group. And so I think that was pretty pathetic, and it was pathetic of me not to put it that way. But thank you, Beth, for being so generous and forgiving for me to have said it in the wrong way. And yeah, so I just want to get that in there.
All right, we're clearing it now.
Okay, good.
But it's a great read, and I encourage anyone who's interested in this battle to pick it up, just so you know what everyone else is doing, and you won't feel so alone, because I know it's often really easy to feel alone in this fight. It's such a toxic environment. And what your book is doing is help create a more safe space where people feel okay in speaking up.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That was kind of the intent. I just wanted to have one place where we kind of explained, even if it only comes to light, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, people say, well, what happened in the 2020s? Like, what was going on in the world of sports that they would even think of doing such a thing? So I felt like if we just have a record for the historical account of, like, how did we get where we are right now, where somehow a guy can just come along and say, oh, I feel like a woman today, and compete in women's sports.
I'm so grateful that you stepped up and did that, because we're in this like cancel culture type environment where no one was really going to go out of their way to write it. You had to step up and take the initiative yourself. And I'm so grateful for that. And it will be a marker of the future for people to look back on. And I think in a matter of years, we'll be having a glass of wine together, looking back on it too, and laughing about all that we had to go through, the absurdities of protecting female fairness and safety and privacy. But together we are saving women's sports. I mean, it's just incredible. You have been by my side. Linda has been a rock since day one of me starting Save Women's Sports. And it's just been awesome to grow together and to take each other places. And it's been fun for me to have her this whole journey, so she can see, like, it really just was a concerned citizen who started a website. And now in a matter of a couple of years, there are laws to protect female athletes. Sure, it's not perfect. They don't all encompass all the states. They don't encompass all ages. Some of them are only K through 12. But we got to take what we can get in this battle and celebrate the wins we have. And to me, it's those young girls that deserve the protection the most, because they haven't found their voice yet, let alone are they able to use it. And so I'm really just so excited for all the work that we have done together. And I wouldn't be here without you, Linda.
Well, Beth, that's a huge honor that you would say that. And honestly, I feel like, I mean, I was just so incredibly proud of you. I ran into you along early on in this battle, and then when you
think we met through Fair Play for Women in the UK, through Communication for the Nicola Williams. She's amazing over there.
Yeah, Nicola Williams started Fair Play for Women in the UK. She was the first organization that started going down this path, and then you decided to start one for the USA. And you will always recall that I said you're going to be the pivotal person, because whatever happens in the USA, especially with sports, because it's such a dominating sport culture, is the thing that's really going to make the big difference in terms of policy, like a huge difference on the ground. And sure enough, Beth, you have stepped up.
There's my coach telling me, I told you you could do it.
I told you could do it. And you know what? How many states, please tell us, how many states now have laws directly related to your advocacy?
There are 9 states with laws.
9 states for sure. Yeah. And we're getting more, right?
Yeah, we're just waiting for the election stuff to die down. And in the new year, we'll be entering. We have about a dozen states that are going to be ready to try at it again.
Ready to go?
That have been preparing in this little bit of time off. So it's almost 40 states or maybe over 40 states in this year that made at least an attempt. So it's a
Wow.
huge majority of the United States
Yes.
that has made an attempt to save women's sports
That's
in one way or
huge.
another. Yeah, it took us our fifth
Amazing.
attempt in Texas, but we finally,
Wow.
that's the most recent law. I went there several times to testify in person. We sat in the Capitol building for over 20
Yeah.
hours waiting to
Wow.
testify. So for it to get signed into a law is just like, oh, so good for my soul. They almost
Of
feel like my
course.
babies, some of these bills, you know,
Yeah.
the mother nature in me. It's like you just really want to see them succeed and go through. And it can be so heartbreaking when they don't at times because so much energy goes into it. It's not just, you know, preparing my little 2-minute testimony. It's me meeting with legislators before and after and media. And this is days of time that gets invested into one hearing.
Yes, absolutely, Beth. You've done such an amazing job through all the discouragement and the ups and downs and just continuing to lobby. I mean, you're doing as much work or more and having as much success as people who get hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars to lobby with legislators. And it still works because
thanks,
why?
Linda.
No, but I'm saying it works because it's absolutely the truth. Everybody can see it. And, you know, I will just say, like, there was in the UK, in the Guardian, there was an op-ed where a male MMA fighter who choked a woman in the ring wrote an op-ed saying how the Texas bill was like banning trans kids from sports and all that. And it's just not true. Every trans child has a chance to do sports in their own way and pertaining to their own biological sex. Everybody still has the option. And I found it disgusting that the man who would get into the ring and choke a woman and compete unfairly would be the one given the platform in a UK newspaper, like not in the US, but even overseas, given the platform to complain about the unfairness when that person has gotten into the ring and beat up a woman and is using children in Texas as his vehicle to complain about and wanting more like fairness and inclusion to allow him to beat up women. And so I responded lately with an op-ed in the Post Millennial, and right away one of the trans activists says, oh, it just goes to show you how little support you have, that you have to go to an international publication to write your op-ed. When in fact, what I was reacting to was another one of their side who had to use an international platform to complain about it. So it was just the madness and absurdity never ends.
It's silly, and we have to laugh so we don't go mad, because
exactly
it is just like a big joke, and
yeah,
sooner or later
serious.
the tide is turning, and people's blinders are coming off, and it's not all just about woke points anymore. People are seeing the truth, and we are. I'm gonna start the hashtag pro reality. I think that's a good one.
Yeah,
pro reality.
Pro reality.
It's time to stop complying with the lies. Like, the emperor has no clothes. It's okay to say so, and let's just keep marching forward.
To this morning, as I said, I woke up to a story out of the UK where somebody has posted a tweet thread, like just 2 tweets, explaining that their girlfriend is in like a women's rugby league in the UK, and they showed up to a match lately within the week where a man with a beard shows up on the other team
to play,
and to play with the women on the other team and self-identify as a woman, even though he has a beard, he's still fully a man. Okay. And so apparently when they were in the scrum, the scrum is where you have in rugby the shoulders, like the shoulders against the next person's hips and stuff. He stuck his hand up a woman's vagina, like one of the players, while they were in the scrum. Pervert. And you know what? And they weren't allowed to say anything about it because, of course, the officials are saying, oh, this is an inclusive league, and he's identifying as a woman, and you should leave him alone and not say anything. And so poor women, like all these players on both sides, like
so they were told not to report a sexual assault.
Yeah, exactly. And so then at the end of this, match, of course, at that particular rugby field, it was just communal women's showers. And all these women were worried what would happen when they got into the showers. Now, were they going to have to deal with this guy?
They're going to run into this man, this freaking
pervert.
And
of course, I don't think it actually happened. But, even the very fact that you put women off, like, just make them worried the entire time about what was going to happen next. It's such a disservice, and it's so pathetic that any league or any leadership in any sport would do this to the women.
Just abandon.
And so in Canada, like I'm just pointing out, of course, I'm Coach Blade on Twitter, and I just put a quote tweet because calling out our own associations who are pushing this and saying, this is what we're telling you is going to happen. It's going to happen. They deny that it's, they say it's just a man who needs to self-identify, and you just need to just be kind and don't say anything. And that's really part of their policy. It says, don't say anything.
Not saying that everyone that self-identifies a certain way is going to be a predator, but those rules changed around them will be taken advantage of by predators.
Exactly. By
like
perverts.
You just saw. I'm going to have to, if I haven't already, I'll put that tweet up. What a horrific way to start your day to see this, and let alone that.
I know.
Wow.
But it's just, it's a thing is that somebody said, I think might even been Joanna Harper, but somebody said, we're making all these laws for just a few people. Like, why are we doing all this? And my only reply to that is, you don't make law. Like, do we ever stop making a law against robbery and theft just because a couple people will steal something? Like, not every citizen is going to steal something, but you have to have a law to forbid this. I hear this at the Capitals
too. Like, we're just like making up an issue, and it's like, since when has it been a problem to be proactive against an issue?
When we see that this is the kind of behavior that it's going to lead to, only with a few, but it only takes a few to ruin our experience as women in sports. In one woman displaces too many.
How old was this? Younger girls? Was this?
No, this was like adult women's league.
All adults, and this male comes in there, and ridiculous.
Disgusting.
We are going to see it with the sports laws, and we'll connect it to the bathroom laws. This relates to what we recently saw in Loudon with their lax bathroom policies, where a male in a dress sexually assaulted a female. The school board tried to cover it up. In fact, that female's dad got in trouble for trying to confront them. It's just a ridiculous situation that we are in. And it's up to ladies like us to call to everyone else's courage so that we do band together and protect females. Because it doesn't take too much effort on the grassroots level to make a difference. A dozen people holding some signs and getting a few things in the media can make a huge difference. So,
and let's point out that in Loudoun County, as an example, it wasn't only right-wing women or Republican women. It was Democrats. It was independents, parents. It's just parents who care about safety for their daughters in the system.
Definitely a hands across the aisle moment.
Absolutely.
There was not one side or the other that was predominantly present there. It's everyone coming together for this. And I think thankfully Netflix and the whole Dave Chappelle saying he was Team Turf is kind of taking off people's blinders and bringing it more into the forefront, the mainstream. And hopefully the less cancellation we see, the more we can talk. And
but they're getting more the pushback against us and against our biology, our sex-based position is going to get very strong for a while, because they know they're losing. Like in the UK now, the old old organizations that were pushing gender ideology, Stonewall, all these organizations that were pushing this ideology. It's really a cult. It's a belief system. You have to believe that a man can become a woman. And we don't believe it. It's just pushing a cult and a belief system. And so now all these they're falling like dominoes. And as they do, you can see that the opposition and those who want to maintain the lie are going to be really arguing like crazy, right? Like crazy. They're going to be arguing and fighting for their lives because they're realizing the truth does hurt them and their cause because they're ridiculous. And actually, for the longest time, as you and I have often said, they were able to lobby governments through stealth, like without anybody knowing what was going on. We had no idea these kinds of laws and policies were being placed, put in place, even at the Olympic level. They only, changed their whole rule to allow men to self-ID into women's sports based on a small study of 8 men.
Not even peer-reviewed, self-reported, not even a scientific study, more of an essay.
I mean, exactly. It's an essay of opinion and, warped into saying, oh, this is the fair way to go in women's sports by people who want to use women's sports to affirm their identity. And, a social affirmation is not a human right. Right?
Exactly.
And that's what they're using sports for, a completely different purpose. That's what they're doing. They're using sport as social therapy or somehow social affirmation. And that has to stop. Women's sports needs to be taken seriously and not used as some sort of medical intervention.
Because they can see that sports is like the tip of the iceberg. Like I like to say, that's what everyone can see, the unfairness of it. Underneath is so much more that's going to sink the ship of women's rights.
Yeah, exactly. Like sport is the head of the spear. It's the place, if they can convince and gaslight everybody into accepting males and men in women's sports and have the women step aside to allow them to self-identify into our races.
It opens the floodgate to everything else.
Everything else. If we can accept that madness, then they know that it'll be accepted anywhere else in society. Hence the importance of your organization, Save Women's Sports, because that is where we need to hold the line. That's the beginning of it. And then we're going to push back from there. That's the battlefield.
Exactly. And I have worked on other aspects of it. Like the UK today is debating in their parliament about males in women's prisons. We're dealing with that in the US.
Yes,
I've been working on that. I like to keep my stuff separate from Save Women's Sports, but I cut trees as a living. So I say we're all branches to the same tree. And
exactly.
We are all really important, rooted in that truth. And there can be more twigs coming off my branch. I don't care if there are more organizations that pop up like Save Women's Sports. More power to them, because we all have a role here and we all come at different aspects, and everything is so important because we need all of it in order for the tree to survive. In order for women's rights to survive, we all need to be here.
Yeah, we do. And Beth, here in Canada, the way the women, like the prisons issue is so ridiculous, in the sense that there was one town hall meeting. So our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, who's super woke, he was at a press conference on various issues of LGBTQ. And there was a trans woman, male who was self-IDing as a woman in the back of the room, who just put up their hand and said, would you mind allowing men, people like me or trans women to be in women's prisons? And without even thinking that, without even saying, well, we'll go away and we have to really ponder that particular policy, the Prime Minister just stood there and acted like, oh, this is all great. Like he said, oh, I don't see why not. And so based on that one meeting, that one press conference, all of a sudden, Correction Services Canada just started allowing more and more males to just self-identify into women's prisons. And of course, it's always, as we see in UK and USA and everywhere, inevitably, it's the sex offenders who self-identify into women's prisons, because of course they would. I mean,
I haven't found one yet that does not have a history of rape, and whether that's children or women, they have some kind of sexual deviation in their history, and it's not fair to force women just like it's not fair to force a woman on the field. It's not fair to force a woman to have a male doctor unsuspectedly or have to share a room in a rape crisis shelter with a male. Just so many aspects of it. And I really take pride in being a warrior for women in all those different ways.
Beth, I can say one more thing. Not only the reason the incentive, I don't know about the system in the USA, but in Canada, what it's like is on the male side of the ledger, you have, if you look at my fingers, the top maximum security is up here, minimum is down here, but for the men. But for the women, it overlaps, so that maximum security for women ends up being almost equivalent to medium or minimum for the men. So if they identify into women's prisons, they'll automatically receive the lower, like more lenient conditions.
Sure. I'm not sure if it works out quite that way. I do know that I've heard like it's better living quarters. Like it's just a friendlier facility. So I would assume it's kind of same gist there.
Probably so it's offset.
They like to get into the women's so that
of course they want to get a better sentence, right? Of course they would. You're just opening the door with that policy to allow them to find a pathway to a more lenient sentence. Like how can our leaders not see that this is the case? Like
how many women are going to have to be sexually abused in order for the people in power to step up?
Exactly.
It's crazy to even have to say that.
I find it astounding and incredible, and just, it gives me such sort of a suspicion about our current leadership class. Like in what all of our countries, we're looking at our leaders and going, what are you thinking? Like and it happens not only in our realm, it seems to be happening in so many different things, whether it's the COVID or anything else. We won't go there, but there's just so many things that are happening that you're just looking at your leadership class, looking at them as if, are you even logical? Like, did something happen on the way to your seat in the legislature, in the Senate, in the, House or whatever? Did something happen where you just stopped thinking? Like, how is this even possible?
Yeah,
you must see that in your lobbying all the time. You must see it.
It's maddening.
So frustrating.
Yeah. It is. But we just have to keep our blinders on and keep our eyes on the prize. Keep training. Keep marching. Keep working those muscles of courage and do your part. I just want to tell everybody, like, please do your part. Even if it is just liking and commenting. But doing things in person means so much more.
Supporting Save Women's Sports, please.
Like and subscribe. Hey.
Contribute to the Patreon, whatever you have to do. Like, this is what I keep saying. Like, if you're in the UK, Fair Play for Women. If you're in the States, Save Women's Sports. If you're in the Australasia, like New Zealand, Australia, there's Save Women's Sports Australasia. There are so many different organizations out there. Well, not so many, but a few that you can actually support and get behind if you care.
There are a few of us now just for sports even. And then we have some other organizations like the Women's Human Rights Campaign who have been supportive of our cause. There's a part of their declaration in there dedicated to female sports. So I encourage you all to check that out. Maybe you'll want to sign the Women's Declaration for Sex-Based Rights. Also Women's Liberation Front, Concerned Women for America, family policy groups. I mean, both sides here, we're all coming together.
I think it's great that you mentioned that. I forgot, but I mean, with respect to just sports, if you really care about just the sports, then those are the first three I mentioned. And then after that, yes, there's now a growing list of groups, women's groups all over around the world, especially the Women's Human Rights Campaign. Like, that's very important to also support their global initiatives.
Yeah, and they have a great feminist question time with people all around the world. And it is so neat to see hundreds of women from all different backgrounds come together and be chatting. It's really fun.
Absolutely.
So I encourage y'all to check that out on Saturdays. I'll put a link below for you to find their page.
And the reason for the importance of the international one is that a lot of this madness, whether it's at the International Olympic Committee or just in general, like spreading to all these other countries, gender ideology spreading around, is that the UN adopted these principles called the Yogyakarta principles. And there was a meeting in Indonesia, and I forget what year, was it 2009 or something? But anyway, there was a meeting in Indonesia, Yogyakarta, Indonesia, where they came up with these principles of self-identification to, as a human right for people. And that really was ensconced within the United Nations sort of ethics and human rights. And they didn't, even people who I've noticed lately, Beth, that even some of the signatories, like the people who are at that meeting, there's up to 9 women and a couple other guys, but who are largely with the LGBTQ community, who are now saying that they didn't think it through and that it was a big mistake, that they shouldn't have done that. They didn't think it through. So this is what we keep running into, is that, and I was just in France meeting with some feminist groups, and they're all saying the same thing, is like, these policies were just put in place without a second thought for the integrity and and for women and our human rights. They didn't think it through. They just kind of wanted to be woke, and they thought this would be
in the name of inclusivity.
And you're excluding women from our own spaces, our own private, safe spaces.
And we carve out those spaces. And things like Title IX in the US, which you benefited from if you were an NCAA athlete.
Yeah, I thank you, USA.
We haven't even had that 50 years. It will be 50 years this summer. We're going to be celebrating that. And we haven't even seen the full equality from that. And now we're erasing inequality that can come from it. And that's what Biden did when he inserted gender identity into Title IX on International Women's Day.
Another man who lost his mind on the way to becoming president of the United States, in the sense of not understanding what his policies and his executive order is going to do to women and girls in the United States. I even have a chapter on that in the book.
All right, plug it again,
chapter
woman.
12.
Yes.
Chapter 12, I talk about, I had to actually bring it back from the printer, from the publisher, to actually insert that last chapter on Joe Biden's executive order in January, because I was in shock when he announced that.
First day of office. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, for whatever you think, if you're even a Democrat, but that one thing area is just, it's just incredible, and it's not helpful to women, and it's totally anti-women. So I wish somebody around the president, how the president is surrounded by advisors, and I don't think anybody is really telling President Biden how damaging and destructive this is for women and girls. And we need to get that message through to President Biden. Like, he needs to rescind that executive order as soon as possible.
Well, we're going to keep putting the pressure on.
Thank you.
With the limited capacity that people do have in America, at least we do have some power left. And we'll use any bit we can to keep shouting from the rooftops the injustices that have been done.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure.
Linda, it's been an amazing time getting to know you.
It has been. Yeah. Well, it's been great knowing you too, Beth. And I will say, for all of our outrage, I am quite hopeful that the worm is turning, like the whole thing is turning, because even after the Olympics, now most of the viewers would know that Laurel Hubbard, who was the New Zealand weightlifter, and is a man who was in the women's section in the Olympics, because he self-identifies as woman. According to the IOC rule, he was allowed to compete there. But the fact is that the IOC realized, and then right after, because of the huge uproar over it, the IOC head of the medical commission, Richard Budgett, basically said, yes, our policy allowing this somehow is not fit for purpose. So they did admit that it wasn't kind of right, that we have to do a different way. But he still says trans women are women, which trans women are trans women. Like, we can accept that they identify differently, but they still have to compete according to biological sex. Like, we don't believe in bullying people, but they have to compete with their biological sex. That's our Athletics Alberta policy too. And yet, when we tried, so after the Olympic Games, we noticed on social media that the trans lobby was actually they were bragging about being in consultation with the IOC even after the Tokyo Olympics. And us women are going like, well, where are the women's groups? Are we allowed to negotiate? Are we allowed to lobby with the International Olympic Committee? So thankfully, our colleague, Kath Eves, who's a lawyer in Australia, sent a letter to the IOC asking, are you going to consult with the women about the policy about women's sports? Fancy that. You have to actually consult with women about our own sports. And the IOC wrote back and said, consultations are closed, and we've already consulted with groups like yours. And so that caused us to get together, and all the different women's groups in sport. And we got onto an email and they said, which one of us was consulted? Were you consulted? Were you consulted? And if so, what did you
surprise.
say? And surprise, surprise, all of the women's groups who care about saving women's sports all piped in and said, the IOC never contacted us. They never consulted with us. So the IOC is lying again. But you know what? We can now call them out on this lie, because we are starting to amalgamate and get together on a global level, so they can't gaslight us and play one group off the next. We are talking to each other as women who care about women's sports, and we are not going to let them lie to us any longer that they've somehow consulted with us. They have not. And the IOC should be called out on these kinds of lies. They have not consulted with women, the women's groups who care to preserve sex-based sports. So stay tuned, because this is only the beginning. We are getting together, and we're going to fight this battle together.
We've been organizing for a while, but like Linda said lately, oh, I'm going to strike this out here. Start again. In the past, we've taken action too. We had over 40 organizations sign on to a petition that Linda helped write to the Olympics. And we just kind of got a response back like, oh, can't do anything now, sort of a thing. We've already made the rules. And so it's so great to see Kath keep through on this. And stay tuned, because it's not over. And in the words of Kelly J. Posey Parker, we never lose.
We don't lose. In the long run, we're going to win. Because why? Because it's the truth.
It is the truth.
If they want women to remain in sports at all, they're going to have to start consulting with us, being fair to us, and stop allowing men to self-identify into women's sports. It's very simple. It should not happen ever for any
Linda,
reason.
I'm so grateful for women like you who have put their stake in the ground. As you said before, it's the hill you're going to die on.
You're going to die on this hill. Because
together we will save women's sports. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Beth. Bye-bye.